For my talk today, I'm going to be going over sharing of personnel in a SISMA. And so this can be a number of things, and it can be in a lot of different scenarios. So first off, just like how can you support other SISMAs or other groups with your strike team? First thing you really got to consider is your capacity building. You need the staff in order to share the staff. If you have one person who's running around doing all of your work, they really probably aren't going to have the time to be jumping across borders or jumping groups and helping out in different places. So try not to overwork your limited staff or even yourself, in trying to do this kind of stuff. But if you've got good partner support, that can really increase your capacity too. It gives you access to additional staff, sometimes additional equipment that you might not have. It might be like a side-by-side or like Vicki said yesterday with the dump truck and things like that. Those can be really awesome resources that you can get from your partners. And then sometimes just extra funding too. Sharing is caring. So it's good to share your staff. You can do it in lots of different ways. You can do it short-term or long-term for a single activity, for a full project, anywhere in between. I like to think of it as like, a full crew for a whole project or an activity can make a big difference, but sometimes just having an extra pair of hands for a few hours can make a really big difference too. So just because, you're sharing doesn't mean it has to be a whole sub-award agreement that you're going to be working on a multi-year project with somebody. Sometimes it's just, hey, can I borrow one of your crew members for a Friday afternoon because we're moving this piece of equipment, or we need to get this site wrapped up really quick and I just need an extra pair of hands. That kind of stuff can be really helpful too. And then knowing when to share and when not to share. So you really want to go for the win-win here. The best situations is where everyone benefits. You really don't want to get yourself into a situation where it's actually going to be detrimental to your SISMA. And we've been lucky we haven't fallen into this too much, but there's been times where we've been really close. Sometimes that's just, an overcommitment, or you say yes to something and then it turns out to be something different than you were expecting. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. So just having clear ideas of how this is going to benefit you, how it's benefiting your partners. Things to consider are, can this acres that you're managing or the time that you're spending, can it be used as match? Is it good outreach or exposure for your SISMA? And can it be directly beneficial to your project? Sometimes it might line up really nice where it actually accomplishes one of your goals and helps out someone else. And that's kind of the big shiny golden star we want to go for. So I'm just going to go over a few examples of some resource sharing that we've had with staff within RISC over the years. And the first big one is Phragmites projects, obviously. So we've been partnered with UPRC&D for a lot of years on Phragmites management along Lake Michigan shoreline. And so oftentimes these are sub-award agreements under multi-year projects. So there's funding involved, there's, resources involved in that. But sometimes we'll also pick up some slack in these. So we can do some additional contracts. If there's stuff that needs to be done, we'll actually do a whole nother contract under the grant to do some extra work. We'll help out our neighboring counties as well. We've often done treatments in Iron County or Delta County, whether that's sending additional bodies and crews to just help out with, you just need more boots on the ground. Other times it's just because stuff's a little bit closer to us and it doesn't make sense for a partner to go and drive 2 hours when we can drive 20 minutes to get to the site and, do this treatment. So that's one of the first examples. Kind of leads into treatment in other neighboring counties or SISMAs. So obviously making sure that all of your permitting, permissions, all of that is lined up, and coordinating really well with your respective SISMA coordinators, county contacts, whoever in those other areas, because it's not your area. So usually we aren't covered under permits or permissions for other counties that we don't typically work in, right? So making sure that all of that's kind of in line and covered. But like I said, sometimes it's just easier for us to go in and snag something than it is for one of our partners or another SISMA to drive several hours to do a 15-minute treatment somewhere. So there's a handful of sites that we do this, and we're always willing, even if it's a little bit further too, sometimes we're willing to just go in and lend the extra hand. Maybe we have some additional equipment that another group doesn't, and it's just a little bit, just makes more sense, right? Our Purple Loose Drive project. So I think Jen mentioned this yesterday, and this is a really cool project that Risk, WePick, and Lake to Lake are all partnered on. And this was kind of a neat one because we almost specifically designed this project to allow Risk staff to be kind of loaned out to the other groups. This is some work that we had been doing on the Michigamme River with our We Energy partners for several years. So we've been doing this for, I don't know, it's like 8-10 years, something like that. And we wanted to expand our management area to the whole length of the river and get more of these headwaters managed. And so that allowed us to partner with WePick and Lake to Lake. And since Risk was really familiar with this work, we've been doing it so long, it just made sense that our staff would go and train the others and would be on loan to help do these river runs and this management. And that's been working out really good for us so far. So sometimes you can, even before a project starts, just right away, design it to be a sharing type project. I know. Equipment or staff loans. So this is kind of more of the nitty gritty stuff. So we've actually developed like a loan contract for our partners so that they can apply and get into like a contract with us to borrow our equipment. This mostly goes for our boat wash. We don't do it for some of our things like our dash unit and stuff like that because I'm not loaning that out. But our boat wash units, some of our smaller equipment, we've definitely been able to do this before. And it's really helpful. Sometimes our partners just need a boat wash for, a weekend event or something like that. So it doesn't make sense for them to rent something or buy their own if they're not going to use it regularly. So being able to borrow one from us works out really well. And then we also do this kind of with our staff, where we actually reach out to all of our partners annually at the beginning of the year and say, hey, we've got our strike team set up this year. If anyone has any requests for survey, for specific species, for management, terrestrial, AIS, aquatic, whatever, let us know. We're scheduling stuff. We'll try and fit in where this works. And we actually get pretty good feedback sometimes. So our partners, this is kind of, we consider a benefit for them too in being partners, is that we can address some of their concerns directly. We've had townships reach out and say, hey, we've got a ton of wild parsnip right by this park. Can you guys make sure that you get that this year? We're like, absolutely. And so then you're also getting that partner engagement. You're making another connection. It makes it a lot easier to get permission for that site, things like that. And then sometimes stuff pops up throughout the year too. We'll have partners reach out mid-season and just be like, hey, this, I saw this while I was driving in this county, and I don't know if you guys are already working on this, but maybe you could take a look. Or they hear something from a fisherman, is like, they saw something weird, you guys should go check it out. And that also helps us because we can't be in all 5 counties all the time. We're not hearing all of this feedback sometimes, or we sometimes miss things. It's a lot of ground to cover. And so our partners being able to have the confidence and knowing that we're available to kind of jump on some of these requests has been really neat and really helpful for us too. But some things to be aware of. Communication is really key here. You just have to, we say it all the time with everything SISMA coordinators do, is like, we got to communicate. We got to stay in touch with literally everybody everywhere. So I know it's easier said than done. But staying connected with your neighbors kind of helps you keep in the loop of like what they're doing, and they know what you're doing. And that makes it a little bit easier to help each other out. So, if Jen's over in Iron County and I have no clue what she's doing in a year, then there's no way I can help her out, or, she's, whatever. So it's good to just kind of keep in touch with your neighbors. It's okay to say no too. We've said that a couple times throughout this conference the last couple days is just be honest about your capacity and say no sometimes. But even if you can't help someone, sometimes your partners can. So you can always outsource. You can say, hey, I know I don't have the time or the staff to help you right now, but my partner might. And that's always something that you can consider too. A big one is to be clear on expectations and abilities of staff. So make sure that if you are sharing staff, if they are going and helping somebody, be really, really specific and clear on what it is that they're doing. And then also like what your staff are allowed to do or are able to do. I think all of our staff kind of do different things sometimes, and they might be trained differently or have different experiences, and we don't want to be sending them into a situation where they're not going to have a clue what they're doing, or they're doing something that they're not trained to do. So just be aware of that and set clear expectations. And that's kind of all I have.